Thank you for staying with me. With us today is Omni Miranda Martone, founder and CEO of Sexual Violence Prevention Association, an organization committed to preventing sexual violence systematically and working to create a world where people can live free from threat through advocacy, education, and community engagement. So tell me, how does research drive the work that you do and data?
Yeah, research and data are so important, but also very hard to come by. First of all, it's very hard to prove that you prevented something because it never happened. But secondly, it's actually very difficult to get sexual violence data. So part of the issue is that oftentimes we'll go into K-12 schools or colleges or workplaces and we'll say, you know, this is the definition of consent and this is who your trusted adult is and this is how to report to HR or Title IX or whomever. And this is why it's so important to report. And this is how you can be an active bystander. And after those things, which are very empowering and will prevent sexual violence, but what also happens is more people are like, oh, I'm protected here. I'm safe here. I have somebody to go to. What happened to me wasn't okay. So we actually sometimes see an increase in reports. So we actually have to look for other data and other research. But it's very important to us. We make sure that everything we do is led by research. We want to make sure that all of our programs, all of our legislation, and all of our guides that we make for individuals, for parents, et cetera, have been research driven, have data behind them, because we want to make sure that the resources that we're putting in, the community, the people, the survivors that are all putting all this effort in, are doing so in a way that's going to be effective and that's going to actually prevent sexual violence.
Well, you just mentioned legislation. So what policies and legislations need to be passed in order to prevent sexual violence?
Absolutely. So legislation is simultaneously one of the most effective ways to prevent sexual violence because it is systemic, but also actually not effective on its own. Policy on its own does nothing. It has to work either through individual people, institutions, or some other mechanism. So, it can, affect individuals by making accountability for certain things. So we just helped pass a bill that's going to require accountability for digital sexual violence at the state level by having civil liability. And so that's going to make it so that an individual person no longer wants to perpetrate sexual violence, right? So policy can affect people at the individual level, but also it can require institutions like K-12 schools, colleges, and companies to have better prevention programs, to have bystander intervention, to be teaching things like consent and bodily autonomy and trusted adults. And then also, it's very important to have legislation that passes funding and that requires research and data and reports, because all of that stuff is what drives the rest of our work and the rest of the work in the field. And so really making sure that we have data, really making sure that we have policy that supports all of the different multifaceted solutions to sexual violence and the different strategies to prevent sexual violence is important. We can't just have one or two pieces.
Now, sexual violence has a lot to do with control, right? And so one thing we know that is, because we're talking about policies and legislation, and that's a big, big thing. That's a big, big ask. But what we have control over is ourselves as individuals. So tell me what an individual can do to take action.
Absolutely. So individuals are really key. That's the driver of all change, right? Is individual people. And so first, individuals can educate themselves, make sure that they understand consent, make sure that they can be an active bystander, that they understand rape culture and victim blaming, and that they're not contributing to those things. That's one big piece. And then another thing is that individual people can advocate for change in their community, with their friends, with their family, but also in their institutions, in their K-12 schools, in their colleges, in their companies. Parents of children, for example, should absolutely be engaging with their child's school to make sure that that school is doing everything that they can to prevent child sexual abuse. And also individuals can contact their legislators and can make sure that they're advocating for change at that systemic level and making sure that they are contributing to a society that's free from sexual violence.
And so these folks, when it comes time to vote or put somebody in power, you need to make sure you know where they stand on those things, right?
Yes.
And that if this is extremely important to you, and it should be, that you need to make sure it's important to them as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So how can the folks watching right now help to further your efforts?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things, honestly, right now is funding. If people are able to donate, that is such a big piece. Unfortunately, with federal funding getting cut, it's rather difficult right now. So that's a really, really big piece. Other than that, individuals can go to our website, which is www.s-v-p-a.org, to learn more about how they can get involved, right? We have different resources different resources for parents, different resources for how to contact your legislators about different policies. And in general, people can get engaged with how to educate themselves and or how to enact change at their K-12 school, college, company, or at the legislation level, right? At the state or federal legislation.
Well, I think knowing and seeing all the work that you do, I know what your goal is. Your goal is to hope that this would not be a problem in the future, right?
Yes.
But we live in a world where people are not perfect and stuff is going to still be lurking no matter how hard we work. So what would be your hope for the future for your organization?
Yeah, so my hope for the future of the SUPA would be that it ceases to exist. I think all nonprofits should have that goal, to eradicate the issue so well and so succinctly that they no longer need to exist. Now, unfortunately, I fear that that will not happen in my lifetime. I think this is a very ingrained issue, but I do think that that is at the essence of our work. We are not trying to make colleges, companies, K-12 schools, parents, individuals rely on us for the engagement, right? And rely on us for the education. We want people to be educated enough that they're then able to maintain that education, keep themselves up to date, or if they're a college, company, K-12 school, update their policies from then on and be self-sustaining, right? And have it be something where we're truly addressing this so holistically that it's not something where it needs our continued support. And so our goal really is to cease existing. And I think that should be all nonprofits' goal, is to fix the problem so well or empower others to fix it so well that we are no longer needed. That is our goal. Unfortunately, I think we're a ways away from that. So we definitely are needed right now. But that is how we try to approach different communities and different institutions, is how can we empower this community to make sure that they're able to do this for themselves?
Well, I have one last question for you, and that is, with the way the world is evolving now and these young folks that are out here now, do you think it's better now than it used to be?
Oof. Depends on what the timeline is.
Okay.
I would say that it's actually, I think, slightly worse right now with the youth than it was about 10 to 20 years ago. But overall, it's better than it was 50 years ago or anything beyond 50 years ago. I think, unfortunately, right now, media has played a kind of big role in swaying some. Especially
People are
young
seeing
people.
movies, people are seeing stuff on television, and they're desensitized to it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's been very normalized. And so I think that unfortunately has made us dip in the other direction for now. But hopefully it's a small blip and we're back in the right direction soon.
Looking at you, and I hope that young people like yourself and that you are empowering others to speak more, because I think in my day, I'm just a little bit older than you, that people just used to keep things silent. And so I'm so glad that people like you exist, because things are getting done.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me a platform to speak about this. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Now, I know you maybe not enjoyed the topic, but you enjoyed being empowered by the information that was provided. And we'd like to make your voice a part of the exchange. If you have some thoughts or suggestions on future topics, post a comment on our MyTVZ social page. Don't forget to use the hashtag OIHR for our Issues Hampton Roads. That's our show for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ray Pearson. Goodbye for now.